Hello my darling, a new books video. Finally, it's officially spring. Still the sun is threatening to blind me, so I'll try to stay as still as I can for the whole video. Okay, this is going to be awkward. The first book that I want to talk to you about is, again, by an author whose name I won't pronounce to avoid embarrassing myself and offending them actually. I write it down here. It's called Bibbi Bokken's Magic Library. It's the story of these two cousins. They're called Berit and Niels. They start sending back and forth this notebook and they use it for letters. Filling those letters is the curiosity and the following investigation regarding a mysterious lady called Bibbi. She's a bibliographer, apparently, and Niels looks the term up in the vocabulary and finds it's someone who's in love or a lover of books, finding this kind of twisted. This is a story that talks about the love of books. Books that have already come out and books that are not finished yet, that are not written yet. It's a story about inspiration and those little mysteries that you can find in each and every day if you really look closely. Next is a different approach to the love of books, but it's love nonetheless. It's David Lodge's The Art of Fiction. This came out in 1992 and it's a book of literary criticism. It first came out as a weekly column in The Independent on Sunday. It spans over 50 concepts, one for each chapter, and each topic is introduced by a quotation or a passage from classic or modern literature, displayed as an example of the topic at hand. So, for example, Jane Austen and Charles Dickens are called, when we're talking about the importance of weather in a story, imagining the future, calls on the stand George Orwell, of course. Ishiguro is the example for the unreliable narrator. And many more. Graham Greene, for example, for the element of the exotic in the story, and then Edgar Allan Poe and Samuel Beckett, George Eliot, James Joyce, and the likes. It's very precise and academic, it's scholarship. But what really struck me is the high level of sympathy, both for those who write and for those who read. This book really equals a teacher with a heart. Then, it's time for the Sunday of Life. This came out in 1952, and I think its most valuable element is the voyeuristic property that it has. That reminded me of Calvino, really. The style is absolutely gorgeous. If I have to say what it talks about, I think it talks about being human. And being human may mean trying to pass time on Earth as painlessly as possible. It may seem inconsequential at times, maybe, but to me, the point is it spins philosophical vortexes with innocence and good faith that clash with cynicism and cruelty. And within these two extremes, you may be able to glimpse what life really is. The title comes from Hegel. It refers to a point where history ends and every day is like Sunday, timeless realm of pure consciousness. Which makes perfect sense because there are at least two threads of time woven together. This book, to me, is a magical container of linguistic plays, funny characters, maybe irrelevant comic situations with a sardonic aftertaste. Then, it's San Lucy's Home for Girls Raised by Wolves. Came out in 2006, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a debut. It's a collection of short stories, and you probably know by now how much I love short stories collections. These tales have the magical property of mixing growing up and facing reality with sparks of childhood. And this is something I'm really interested in because I think most of the time you fake one or the other to blend in better. There are simple beginnings to each and every story. They spin around unpredictably and they catch elements of the real and the bizarre, which makes the absurdities of life capable of emerging better. There is one flaw to me, again, personally. The endings are extremely abrupt. It gets really frustrating because you are constantly left hanging by choice. I mean, it's not like they've lost the final pages of the manuscripts. Probably the one story that doesn't really suffer that much for this flaw is the title story. But again, this book is one of those that you eat and you enjoy, but it still leaves you with an empty stomach. Again, another suggestion on Formspring. I think all these books come from suggestions. I'm really grateful. This one came out in 2010. It's called Warm Bodies. There it is. Okay. Summit is already taking care of the movie. Apparently it's coming out on February the 1st, 2013, and John Malkovich is in it. Directing is Jonathan Levine, who's already directed 50/50, which I found extremely honest. Once again, of the possible reviews, on the cover there's Stephanie Meyer's one and Simon Pegg's. Let me tell you straight up, this is a love story involving a human girl and a zombie boy. And he's a zombie, alright, decaying and all. It's a debut again. It was first self-published and sold through the website, which is something I can relate to. What I can't relate to is the fact that the style this is written in is gorgeous. It's amazing. So much so that personally I found the style so brilliant it overshadowed the story. To be honest, this story can be slightly disturbing because in an attempt of, again, a love story of an immortal boy and a mortal girl, the immortality is depicted as very unglamorous. Obviously, well, no, I can't tell you what happens during the book. Please read it. It's a pleasure to read it. I think it's better if you actually enjoy the theme of zombies, because sometimes the details could be unsettling. And please, when you've read it, come back and tell me what you think. I'm already praying to all the deities of transposition in movies. I think this one is going to suffer a couple of serious changes to hit the big screen, and I'm sorry for it. Because it's metaphorical, really. I suspect that the point of the story is way beyond the one that is told. But the one that is told brilliantly. The style is superb, personally. I've been asked what's my opinion about Vanity Fair? Vanity Fair came out in 1847 and 48. It's a satirical depiction of society in early 19th century Britain. The title comes from The Pilgrim's Progress, came out in 1678, and it refers to a stop along the Pilgrim's Progress in a town that's called Vanity Fair, which holds a never-ending fair representing men's sinful attachment to worldly things. I personally think Vanity Fair is one of the best Victorian novels you can read. The use of irony is utterly supreme. The language is sheer beauty. And as it happens with great books, it helps you to see the world in a new way. Even though the world it talks about is long gone, he can be cheerful and pessimistic, can be tender and sentimental, but also cruel and grotesque, while telling of the human condition in a splendidly controlled, well-mannered, extremely perceptive prose. So much so that I think it goes beyond characters. I mean, Amelia is disgustingly and awfully charming, and Becky is probably kind of selfish. But as I think we've said about Jonathan Lethem for Freedom, I think, the huge amount of sympathy and comprehension that these characters are gifted with somehow make their flaws forgivable. It's aged, of course, but again, if you like Victorian novels, I think this is as clever as it gets. It's going to be tough to talk about this because I don't want to spoil it for you. I really hope you read it, and probably I should stop here. But anyway, Fourth Mentions, it's a story about what constitutes reality. And again, the metaphor involved here is huge, personally, because there's a group of people who start something they don't fully understand. And I think that the matter at hand can really refer to that gigantic concept that you try to ignore every day lest be overwhelmed by anxiety, that is, what is life? The point is that men deal every day, every minute, with something they don't understand, which is existence. It's written amazingly. And personally, this style has been an amazing discovery because I've never read anything like this. Bizarre and unexplained happenings try to interfere with the story in a very awkward way. Say now a toad falls from the ceiling and lands on the desk in front of me, and no one notices and no one comments about it. These little elements are stupendously unsettling. It's like a thunder in the distance telling you storm's coming, and it leaves you with this underlying tension all through the book that leaves you alert all the time. And some sentences I just had to write down because shyly murderous with a laugh like breaking crystal. It sounds good, then you stop for a second and you think, it sounds real. Probably seen with a distorted sensibility, but a sensibility nonetheless, one you can relate to. It's a story about the things behind an archetype, and in this I probably found the roots, maybe just, well, the seeds of American gods. I'm probably getting here once the party's over. So if you've already read it, please tell me what you think. Otherwise, please do read it. Last and definitely not least, this book I absolutely loved. Even though it's been a struggle to read it. It's self-published, it's self-promoted, which to me is always heroic and brilliant and worthy of endorsement. The point is, Amazon suggested it to me while I was browsing through the possible ebook editions of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, to have one on the portable device and have it always with me, much like a towel. Anyway, the quirky description, and up to 1 or 2 months ago, maybe, the lack of customers' reviews hooked me up immediately. And there's really little I want to say about it. Again, self-published via CreateSpace, I'll put the link in the doobly-doo. It has the most thorough preface and postface ever seen in written history. For goodness sake, it has bloopers at the end. There's amazing fluency to the prose. Colourful legal terms and situations that turn out just as ridiculous as you've always suspected them to be. It spins you around with people and places and times and storylines until maybe you're a bit dizzy, but without the unpleasantness of being sick. Probably, one may say, there are too many characters and the names are complicated and hard to remember, hard to pinpoint and to put names to faces. But as confusing as they might seem at first, somehow they stick with you and you find yourself going back to them, because the theme of this book, to me, is so cleverly introduced, developed and carried out. It adds up to your personal take on it. And the theme being, again, what is being, what is existence, what actually constitutes life. It is absolutely brilliant, and it left me filled with envy. Okay, so that's it. Given most of these were suggestions, I hope I've done my bit and maybe given you a couple of suggestions. If you've already read or decide to read some of the books that I've talked to you about, please let me know what you think. I'm always eager to hear someone else's take on these titles, and please don't be dead by boredom, and if you will, see you next time. Bye.